because society, religion, culture teaches you that you're supposed to value each other and not hurt your friends, your partner, your lover. And then, we're screaming harder. Um, and so this really helps open us up to activities that have been, denied to us, that have been labeled as taboo. But, we finally, help each other kind of open up and realize that, hey, I'm not hurting you. We are getting actually closer together. And it can be a very beautiful moment to open up like this and show this part of ourselves to others.
Welcome to the Give and Consent podcast. The goal of the show is to introduce you to the people and ideas behind sex positivity. And today I am joined by Queen Ana Algos. Thanks for being with me today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I'm excited to have you here because you're a pro-dom, and I know that's a lifestyle a lot of people are into, and you also identify as a BDSM lifestyler. So can you tell me a little bit, what is a pro-dom? What is a BDSM lifestyler? Let's just start there.
Okay, so a BDSM lifestyle, or you might hear some people say, "Oh, I'm in the scene, I'm in the community." That means that is someone that practices BDSM. They have kinks, their fetish. They might play at a dungeon play space. They might just play at home. It's subjective. It depends on their experience and what they want to do with their play partners. And then a pro dom is someone that either independently or with a dungeon space or play space that does sessions with people. You might have a pro dom, a pro switch, or a pro submissive. And not all professional BDSM players are lifestylers. Not all lifestylers are pro BDSM players.
Awesome. That's so good to hear about. Could you tell me also, what is the difference between like what you do? Like we have Dom and Dame. Like what is that so people can understand?
Well, so you might hear the terms like dom, dominant, dame. So DOMME, that's what a lot of women identifying people might call themselves. But some people might just say, hey, I'm a dom. We don't need that resignation of like the ME added at the end.
How'd you end up getting into this?
Well, which part? The pro part or the lifestyle part?
I mean, I think they're related, right? So like one leads to the other, or not.
Let's see here. Well, I would say let's start with the lifestyle part because that came first. So I have always been interested in like the body, anatomy, and stuff like that, and like relationships and how people interact and intimacy between people. And then I started studying more about like anal play. But I grew up in a very religious community, so of course you can't be, you know, having books in your house about, anal play and, how ejaculation works. So kind of put that away. And then finally in college, I was like, you know what, I'm kinky and I just need to give into it. So I finally started going to dungeons and taking more classes and talking to people about, kinks and fetishes in the community. And then I finally really got to talk to people about like the body and sexuality and just learned so much about all the different orientations and playing styles. And it just kind of snowballed from there. I began as a submissive, and then my friends started asking me like, hey, we trust you, can you give us a spanking? I was like, all right, I'll try. And then I was like, ooh, I like this, I want more of this. So I started studying more about how to be a good top and what skills are needed to be a good dominant. And then I was a switch. And then I had a lot of pro friends, and people kept telling me like, why don't you just apply to work at a dungeon? I'm just like, what? And then I did, and I was a pro switch at Sanctuaries. Sanctuary is the largest dungeon in North America. if not the world. It's huge. Space wise, it's just amazing. And so I was very very blessed that I was able to pass the test to be a pro switch, and then eventually I kept increasing my skills and I became a pro dom. And I love it. I get to do this for work and I get to do this in my life. But for me, my work isn't even really work because it's something that I want to do. I love helping people explore this side of themselves. And that's kind of why I went into the education route too, because one of my degrees is in education. Um, and so it's always been a part of me to teach, to help, to kind of give back to the community. I've been volunteering with charities since I was like 10 years old. And so I bring that into my work, my space as well. So I do events where we raise money for charities. When people ask like, "Oh, can I submit to you?" One of the questions that really weeds out people, I'm like, "All right, what have you done for your community lately?" And they're like, "What?" I'm like, what have you done for your community lately? And that really tells a lot about their character. And so I'm just very lucky that I get to be in the lifestyle, I get to be a pro, and I get to help people realize that, hey, you're not weird for having these kinks and fetishes. You're not weird because you like sex a certain way. You're not weird because you don't like sex, but you like still like getting spanked. So that's, I just want everyone to feel welcomed, feel accepted, and feel heard.
Nice. That's really wonderful. Lots to unpack there. But one thing I want to ask about is what is the difference between a pro switch and a pro dom?
So, a dom in general is someone that likes to give a sensation. So that's the spanker, that's the whipper, that's the one doing the interrogating, stuff like that. A switch is someone that does both dom activities and both sub activities. So the submissive is the one receiving the sensation. And so if you're a switch, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be 50% dom, 50% switch. It varies. It can even vary between the person you're playing with. So a pro switch is someone, you know, they might do a session with one person where they're a dominant, another session where they are a submissive. Switches are amazing. And you know, there's just been a lot of talk lately about whether switches are real or whether they're just confused, but it's okay to like cake and ice cream.
Yes, yes. As both a switch and someone who identifies as pansexual or bisexual, I have to say we're real. And
Yes,
we're not all the same.
exactly.
Yeah, 100%. I want to ask you about two things and what you were just saying. Also, like for one, what is that application process like? You said like someone is asking you to be your submissive, and then like why an application process? Why do people want to do that? And then when you get to playtime, I want to talk about what a dungeon is like. So kind of
So,
like walk me through the process.
again, it's one of those things you have to figure out like, okay, do we mean like what do they do to get a session, or what do they do if they want to be like my lifestyle submissive?
Mm.
So when it comes to the pro world, if someone wants to have a session with me, they can email me or contact me through my website, or they can call Sanctuary Studios and book an appointment. And I also have a submission application on my website that lists, you know, how do you want your session? Do you want it text, phone, cam, in person? What are some activities you'd want to do? What are some of your triggers? What names do you want to be called? Things like that. How long do you want the session to be? If someone wants to submit to me, you know, in as a lifestyle player, then, you know, it depends like, okay, well, is this going to be like a one-time thing? Are we friends? Are we trying to develop some type of dynamic? Um, and then again, I might have them fill out the same form and maybe even a longer one, because if we're trying to build something, I want to make sure that we're all on the same page about expectations, responsibilities, and that I know their physical, emotional, and mental health. So we can have a fun, safe time together.
Nice. And when someone gets through that application process, you decide that you're going to play, you take them to the dungeon. What is what is that like going to a dungeon? What do you wear? What like is it scary?
Well, let's see here. What I would say to describe a dungeon in general is that not all dungeons are created equally. A lot of them will have a different type of spirit to them. But generally, you'll have a place where you're going to do the monetary transaction of paying the entrance fee, whether it's through card or cash or just checking that you bought your ticket online. And most places will check your ID to make sure that you are over 18. And some events are even over 21 because they might have alcohol. Not all places will have alcohol, but some do. Um, and you actually, that's almost a sign too. If you go to a dungeon that's not checking ID, you know, just make sure you're safe. You want to make sure that everyone is of legal age where you are playing. And so you take care of that. And then you walk in and some places they're just one big giant room, almost like a warehouse of sorts where there's different PlayStations. So you might see a St. Andrew's cross, that's the X looking thing. You'll see spanking benches, just different areas for people to play. And some dungeons will have rooms, multiple rooms where people can play in. And sometimes the rooms can fit just the people playing, and sometimes you can have spectators watch too. And or you can have some rooms where they're so big, multiple people can play in the room. Some places will even have snacks where you can have snacks. There might be a place where you can sit down on a couch and do aftercare. There might be a smoking area or a boot black area. Each dungeon is its own little magical world. And when it comes to what to wear, most places they will have a description of the dress code that they want for that event. And what I will say is don't go if you're a beginner and you don't have a lot of the outfits and stuff that you see other people wear, don't try to break your bank. Just, what makes you feel good? What makes you feel sexy and happy and confident? And yeah, just go with that. And most dungeon spaces they're not going to make you strip as soon as you walk in. I've had a lot of new people ask me, so when I walk in, do I just have to shed my clothes immediately? I'm like, no, unless you want to. But definitely make sure you're wearing clothes um, when you get there. Don't come out of your car completely naked. Like, dungeon spaces don't want that attention. So, make sure you're wearing clothes. Then you walk in. If you want to change, you can change, but it's up to you. So, yes, just be comfortable.
Something I really love about dungeon spaces, among other communities, is it really is a community. Because not everyone's going to want to come to us and be like, I want to be your submissive. I'm going to fill out an application and go to the dungeon. For those who might be a little more vanilla, who've never gone to a dungeon before, there's events called munches and sloshes, and then there's classes too. Can you tell me a little bit about those and why that's a good place to get started?
Yes. Oh, and I also want to back up and say that not a lot of prodoms and lifestylers have applications. It could just be a conversation. So I just want to make sure that people that are kind of new to this understand that a lot of people aren't going to give you like a job application, like, okay, submissive application time. So just be aware of that. But yes, munches, you might even hear some people call them sloshes, depending on the region where you are. So munches are where people that are kinky can meet in a more non-kinky setting. So it might be held at a restaurant or at a bar, just some place that's not too, I would say, not almost like somewhere where you can just be in clothes and just talk one-on-one to someone, where you don't have the pressure of playing, where you kind of get to know someone just on a human level. Because sometimes people look at kinksters and go, oh my goodness, you are sexual deviants. All you do is have sex and beat people, or you like to get beat and get hurt and spread diseases. And people forget that or don't know that there's kinksters everywhere. It's like, I see kinksters. We have jobs in every field. We're very smart. We are some of the best communicators and negotiators. We take health and safety very seriously. Some people go, why are there so many classes? because we want to be safe while we're being sexy. Um, and so munches give us the chance to talk to people, to talk to each other on that human level, and talk to each other about kinky things too. And so that just gives people, especially if you're new, you get a chance to be not in a dungeon space and just be like, okay, we're going to have some appetizers and a beer and just talk about why we want to be in the kink community and to meet people.
Totally. I love those spaces too because then you start finding people who share kinks because not your kink is not my kink and that's perfectly all right. It's one of my favorite lines that I learned. Like
Hmm.
I'm someone who's very into bondage and rope play, but for me that's a play thing. And what I want to ask you next is kind of you've been using the word play. Does play mean it's a sex thing?
No, it doesn't have to be sex. So BDSM play doesn't have to be about sex. It can be about sex if that's what the people involved agree upon. So you'll hear the terms like play, session, scene, um, all kinds of names for it. Role play, scenario. That just means that two or more people have talked to each other, done some type of discussion about, okay, what are we going to do? What kind of mood do we want to be in? What kind of scene space do we want to be in? And how are we going to end it? And how are we going to do the aftercare, the kind of the coming down, going back to reality part, and the check in part afterwards to make sure that everyone is doing okay to kind of help with the drop that might occur after a scene.
And that sounds like a lot to learn because you gave me a whole checklist of pieces I need to get through. I talked a while back, we did talk about like the safer sex talk kind of has the same thing where you have these check boxes that you go through with people. And then also finding a way to make that negotiation sexy. Is that something that you teach?
I do teach that. Most of my negotiation classes are one on one, or I talk about it in my classes because negotiation is so important. It's important to know the value of being a good communicator and understanding your partner. Some people hear the word negotiation and they get turned off or scared by it, or they go, it's boring. And it's like, it doesn't have to be boring. Negotiation can be sexy. Because think about it, like, okay, you found someone that is interested in you, that wants to play with you. They were attracted to you, whether it was your looks or they saw you play or they saw your toy bag, and now they agreed to negotiate with you. Do understand that just because you do a negotiation with someone, that does not mean you are obligated to play with them. You have agreed to negotiate. When you agree to play, that means you consent to play. You agree to negotiate. Negotiate first, then you play. So during the negotiation, you're talking about, okay, well, why are you here? What do you want to do? What do you want to get out of playing with me? What are some things you want to do? What are some things you do not want to do? Both people, the top and the bottom, should talk about what turns them. There's that what's that phrase you use? Your kink is not my kink. Another phrase I
Mm-hmm.
like to use is your turn on is not my turn on. Your turn off is not my turn off. So you need to talk about turn offs and turn ons too, and talk about grounding mechanisms, because sometimes people will play and the scene might be really emotional for them and they don't know why or they didn't expect it, and sometimes it just happens. And so you have to think about, like, okay, if it gets emotional, did we go over verbal safe words? Did we go over non-verbal safe words? Do you have a trigger I should know about? For instance, one of the most popular things that people talk about are belts. A lot of people, belts were involved with child abuse, and so they might not want to involve belts into their scene. And so that's something that they can talk about. And if, let's say, that person goes to a dungeon, they see someone getting hit with a belt, it might trigger them. So you want to make sure you know how to support the person you're playing with. You might hear people say, oh my goodness, I like that dominant because they're always aggressive and always mean. And that doesn't necessarily mean that person is a good dominant. If this person is, you always see them and they're always mean and aggressive, is this person going to be able to be kind to you when you need support or when you need aftercare? So it's very important for people to understand that, okay, it's great people have skills and can get in role, but do they know how to treat you like a human, to take care of you when you need to be taken care of?
100%. So like wonderful stuff. And on the opposite side of that, when folks are brand new to the scene, we see this a lot where someone will come to a person like you and just be like, I have no limits. I just dominate me. I want all of the things and I want to try everything. I'm going to go to every class. What do you say to folks who approach this group like that?
Well, I will be honest and say that when I would get messages or people who would say that, I used to just explode at them and be like, "How dare you? You should not say that. It's such a turn off." But now I
Mhm.
realize that a lot of people, they might say that because they're trying to get your attention. They're trying to seem attractive to you so you can play with them. And so, I've learned to just be nicer in my correspondence with people like that and just say, hey, I don't think you mean that. And then we go over like why that doesn't make sense because you do have limits. I'm pretty sure you don't want me to cut your leg off. Things like that. And then they go like, what? I was just like, found a limit.
Mhm.
So it does happen where you'll see people, all genders, orientations, sexuality, doesn't matter. It's not just a male thing, where people will say, I have no limits, take me. And it's just like, you have limits, sit down, let's talk. Um,
I want to talk to you a little bit about fetishization that can happen because we live in a society that makes certain assumptions about power dynamics and about what that means. Like for me, a lot of people may assume I'm submissive because I'm female. How does that play out for you when you're out in the scene? How do you see that?
that is definitely a thing where people will see someone, will see a female or someone that looks femme, and they go, "Oh my goodness, you must be submissive. You must be submissive." And it's just like, no, not necessarily. Or they'll see someone with a collar, and they'll go like, "Oh my goodness, you must be submissive. So you're going to submit to me, right?" And it's just like, "Oh my goodness, you lost child." Um, but it's you can't really make assumptions based on how someone's dressed. You really have to ask them. Like I have some very dominant looking women that are very submissive, but people think they're dominant. They're like, well, you're wearing all black. It's just like, no, she just likes to wear black. And that's one of the things. The best way to learn about a person is to talk to them. One of my some of my advice to people that are new: make as many friends as you can because you will learn things about people, about the community, and you'll learn things about yourself.
And as you're talking this through, like it's all about the communication. And I'm reminded, one of my first episodes I did was with Betty Martin, and she talks all about consent. And as you're saying this, what I'm thinking to myself is suddenly it's on me to know what my desires are and actually voice them to somebody else. And I find for a lot of people, especially on the submissive side, that can be really difficult. What advice do you have for people in like navigating that and being able to find their words to communicate those things?
So, as a submissive or dominant, like, okay, so here's what I'll say. You're an adult, you've made it this far in life. You should be able to understand some of the things you like, some of the things that turn you on, and you should be able to understand what are some of the things you don't want done to your body. So, here's where I see people get nervous when they enter the community. It's like, okay, you're entering this community that's new to you. You have to be able you to kind of talk about you have to pinpoint what you like, and then you have to tell these people the sexy things you like, and then you have to figure out how to play with people during these sexy things that you like that you just discovered or that you've been hiding away inside of you. So yeah, it takes practice to open up and to talk, and it's okay if you don't know if you like something, because remember, we were all beginners at one point, and our likes and dislike lists will change from year to year. So don't be too hard on yourselves, and it's okay. Some people, they join the community, they take a break, they come back. Just take care of yourself and don't be afraid to tell someone no. If something feels uncomfortable to you, you don't need to give someone an explanation. Just saying, no, I don't want that is enough. And no one should pressure you to do something you don't want to do. But definitely, if you're new, make friends, build your network because you don't want to have what I call the partner blinders on, where you're like, I need to find a dom, I need to find a submissive. It's like, no, find a community, find friends. And sometimes it might take time to find out where you might fit. You know, some people, they might like one dungeon community more than the other for whatever reason, or they might like, they're like, oh, okay, I'm more with my rope family, or might be my wax play family, or blood play family. So you just have to figure out what works for you. And another thing that new people to the community have trouble with is vetting. So you hear people say that, hey, you need to vet people that you meet and that you play with. And so what that means is, okay, if you meet someone, you want to play with them, you want to ask people in the community, like, hey, have you seen this person before? Have you played with them before? What are they like? Are they a safe player? But if you're new, you might not have people that can vet you. So some of the things you can do is, well, I like to say, if you want to seen, you got to be seen. So go to events, and there's a lot of virtual events that are happening right now still. So it's okay. Go to virtual events. When things start to open up, go to those events and build that network so people can vet you, so they can see you and see what kind of player you are, see what type of person you are. And, as people get close to you, do you have any friends that they can talk to and send, maybe ask some questions about you if they really are trying to build some type of playship with you?
I completely agree with that. You said so many good things right there. One is around like this like scarcity and like I shouldn't say no or I can't say no. Like this person's offering to give me the kink that I really want. Like I just want to be flogged my whole life, and I shut up at the dungeon and someone finally offered. But I was also like not feeling very good, and I had a headache, or I had this big emotion all day. So you say yes when you want to say no.
Hmm.
Um, but what I'd like to kind of get to is that like it's not the only opportunity to get flogged, and it doesn't always have to be that one person.
Hmm.
I think we see a lot of that, and I like also you mentioned the relationship blinders, because I see people do this. They'll show up to something where it's a class event, and they're looking for their ideal dom, their ideal submissive, and they're gonna build that ideal relationship, and they completely miss the beauty that is the community. And I mentioned that too because like I never got into any kind of dynamic with anyone I tie rope with, but it was all really good friendship and really good practice. And then when I got into that relationship and sexy space, I had the skill set and the safety and the knowledge to bring to that relationship. So I think that's a really beautiful, valuable thing.
Oh, yes.
Um, yeah, of the classes that you teach, of the services you provide, what's your favorite parts of that?
I feel like my favorite part of teaching is just seeing people just feel accepted and heard. Um, Especially right now, people, they're at home, they might be separated from their play partner, or they were just getting in the community and then the world shut down. And so these virtual classes and events have really helped people, find themselves and explore different things. And just, I love getting the messages from people that are just like, you rejuvenated my love for kink. You really helped me find myself. I help couples. I had one couple, we were doing a Zoom call and they were crying. They were like, you helped our marriage. And, people saying that they don't feel weird, or, they didn't know that there were other people that do these things and that it's okay. um, but yeah, I love teaching and during these classes because there's a lot of kinksters out there, and not a lot of them know that there's a community that will accept them and hear them and embrace them. But I will also say that we cannot forget that wherever there's people, there is drama. And so I also tell people in my classes, you got to develop a kinky backbone, because don't get involved with the drama. Do your best to, yeah, stand up for people's rights when you see someone being discriminated against. Like, stand up um for people, but try not to listen to rumors and bad things and cause trouble. And help each other, be a good community, because yeah, wherever there's people, there's going to be drama. There's going to be some people that don't have your best intention at heart. You might hear some people say, oh my goodness, that person's a creeper. But yeah, there might be a creeper here or there, but that's not the majority of the people um, that are in the community. And it is up to us to help protect each other. And if you do see someone doing anything that is not ethical, then yeah, we should call them out and try to address the situation.
Totally. I love what you were saying about growth in this also, and that this is helpful for people. Like, one of the labels I identify with, that like for me was very jarring, is with being a sadist. Like, in the right situation, I really like to hit people. And that's something where for non-kinksters, that it hits them wrong because they don't understand that there's a time and place and context and consent and safe words and
Hmm.
checking in later. What kind of growth have you seen in people in terms of like, I would call it, for me, was about embracing the shadow, which like was like, I was told like, you never hit, that's not okay. So having a space where it was okay made me experience growth that made me grapple with new parts of myself. What do you see when you're working with people, or what growth have you had?
The majority of people that have that struggle with playing is that they feel guilty, about wanting to do these things because society, religion, culture teaches you that you're supposed to value each other and not hurt your friends, your partner, your lover. And then, we're screaming harder. Um, and so this really helps open us up to activities that have been, denied to us, that have been labeled as taboo. But, we finally, help each other kind of open up and realize that, hey, I'm not hurting you. We are getting actually closer together. And it can be a very beautiful moment to open up like this and show this part of ourselves to others. And that's what makes the community so beautiful, is that we found a group of people that, want to do these vulnerable, intimate things together. And that's one of the things I miss about going to parties. Like, even if you don't know everybody's name, you recognize their faces and you're just like, this is family. This is where I want to be. This is my chosen family. You're like, all right, I love seeing her get spanked. I love seeing her get whipped. Like, this is beautiful. And then, they're going to accept me doing whatever I want to do in a scene.
Nice, nice. That's really beautiful. I really enjoyed. I went to a virtual party recently where we went to a room called the Cage, where we got to watch people play. They had kind of set up boundaries beforehand about what they were okay with, so we could actually call out to them to do things. So we were like watching a flogging session in the foyer, and he very much enjoyed that, because I miss it in dungeon spaces.
Yeah.
How are you staying connected to the community right now while we're not able to go out to the dungeon?
Well, I have been going to munches. I've been checking out, let's see, just different munches across the nation, and been hosting virtual parties myself. Um, Actually going to be participating in a virtual party this month, that's for just cis and trans women only. So that's going to be very exciting. And just, I've loving teaching in all the classes. I've been doing a virtual book club that I started last year, where I read the book to the class and then we discuss what we read. So the book series might be anywhere from 5 to 10 weeks. And so we read parts of the book, we divide it up between those weeks, depending on how many pages the book is, and then we discuss the book. I do a twice a month support group called SOS with Anna. So we do soft skills, open discussion, and support. And that has been amazing. And yeah, and then plus all the other little specialty classes, like I just did one a few weeks ago, verbal domination, doing one next week on threesomes and moresomes, like how to play with more than just your partner when there's multiple people. And social media I have met a bunch of people just from being on social media. And that has been beautiful, making friends like that. So now when the world does open, I get to travel. I can, go to play spaces and meet people that I have been making friends with online for months now.
Nice. You just mentioned a lot of classes and resources. Where can people find you and find those classes?
The best way to stay on top of what I am doing is to check out my website. So it's my name, queenanaalgos.com. And when you go to my website, scroll all the way to the bottom and sign up for the monthly newsletter. And then you can be informed of when we do classes and whatnot. And so, in the newsletter you'll have a list of all the classes we're doing. I do have little activities. I'll have like the question of the month. I'll have little activities about how to do a scene, music suggestions, and links to other places around the world to get more BDSM information.
What is the anatomy of getting into a scene? Because I know that there's different pieces from beginning, middle, and end.
So usually what happens to get to a scene is that the people involved will have a talk, and most people will label that as a negotiation. And I like to look at the negotiation part as an interview, because you're making sure that each of you are a good fit for each other. Because if you want to get spanked, your person hates spanking, it's not a good match. And so you want to make sure that you both have activities that you both enjoy doing. Um, and then again, you're going to go over, safety things, making sure you understand grounding and when to check in with each other the next day or two to make sure that everybody is okay physically and mentally and emotionally. And so after you have that talk and you consented to play, that's the important part. You don't just talk, you give consent, enthusiastic, informed consent. And you'll hear that a lot in the scene as you go along, because if you don't give consent to do something, it should not be done. And that's what separates BDSM from abuse, is that we are consenting and giving people the permission to do these things to us. And people have given us consent to do these things to them. And that's not what happens in abuse. Abuse, your consent was denied, not heard, taken away. Um, and so you consent to play, you do the session, and you have to remember there's like a build up and then like a de-escalation. And so there is the warm up that can involve, really involving all the senses, getting you warmed up, maybe doing some like light spanking on the bum. I like to call it the inspection time, where you're just, eyeing your submissive that you're playing with. And then you get more into like the meat of the scene, and maybe it can be, and this, you want to, in your negotiation you're going to talk about, the mood of the scene. Is it going to be silly? Is it going to be serious? A mix of both. um and then you have the meat of the scene that you really discuss. You're going to use your tools that you that was agreed upon in your negotiation. And then you're going to have your like de-escalation, your like cool down, where it's not going to be so heavy. And then you're going to enter your aftercare part, where you kind of wake up from the scene and kind of bring this person back to reality, where, I mean, it can include anything from like, we just need a moment to sit, we're going to eat. It can include cuddles. Some people, it might include doing some type of sexual activity, but your aftercare just depends on you. And then some people might be on the same page about play, but they might have a little bit of a disconnect with aftercare. And so some people have an aftercare proxy, because if you really need cuddles after you play and your partner doesn't like to cuddle, then you might need to get someone to cuddle you afterwards, and that's okay. I like to believe that everyone practices aftercare. That's what I like to call an Anna opinion. I'll say it in my classes when it's something that is like my opinion. And this is what I mean by everyone practices aftercare. Even if you don't want aftercare, like you're the person that's like, don't touch me, don't hug me, don't look at me, I need to leave right now. That's your aftercare. That could mean that your love language is not physical touch and you just want to be left alone, but that's your aftercare. Your aftercare is don't touch me. You spelled it out, like, I'm not going to cuddle you. And that's okay. It just, as long as you know that, then you just tell your person like, hey, my aftercare is don't touch me. And just tell the person what you need.
Yeah, totally. When it comes to negotiation, I found that when I got started, it was really about like, what do you like? Okay, let's do that thing. Like, you want to be tied up? Okay, let's tie you up. But I've slowed down given time, and now I'm more going to ask people like, why do you want to be tied up? What sensation are you looking for? And
Mhm.
then asking myself, is that a sensation I think I can deliver? Is this a sensation I want to deliver? And same thing with aftercare. My needs as a top are different than my needs as a bottom,
Yep.
or dom and sub. Like when I'm being on the dominant side, like I need to put my rope away before the aftercare can really happen because my mind's on it and the container hasn't been closed, is how I kind of put it. When it comes to like negotiation, what I want to ask you is, do you have any questions that are like favorite questions or ones you really suggest people get into?
One of the top questions people need to ask each other is, how sexual are we going to get?
Mm.
And that can look different to a lot of people, because some people don't count coming from a vibrator as sex. Some people do. Some people don't count oral as sex. Some people do. So you have to make sure you ask those questions. And it's not weird to ask those questions. And you can't assume that since you're playing with each other, that sex is on the table. Um, you have to talk about it. You need to talk about, STDs, STIs too, and be safe. A lot of people that get tested, you can just bring up the results on your phone. And you have to think about it too. If someone doesn't want to get tested but still wants to play, that kind of shows you how important their health is to them, which is low. And it kind of shows you how much they're going to take care of you. Because if they're not going to take care of their health to find out if they have something that they can potentially pass to you, that might not want to be a person you play with. And also know, if someone does have something, don't shame them for it. Um, People have stuff, and you can't shame them about what they have or how they got it. And if someone does have something, it doesn't automatically mean that it's a no to play with them. You just might have to change some of the ways you play that you initially wanted to do. So please ask people when you negotiate, how sexual are you going to get and what does that look like? Is there going to be protection? What things need protection? What things don't? What type of toys have been shared between partners? And that's another question too. Ask people how they clean their toys. Ask them if they do clean their toys, because some people don't. And so you want to make sure that you're playing with someone that is being safe and clean, because you can transmit some stuff between toys, between people.
Yeah, that's true. And I think we're getting at here too is I want to highlight risk aware consensual kink, because kink brings danger into your life where so there's a risk of safety, and of course no situation is 100% safe, but we always want to be risk aware. Like when I tie someone's arms behind their back and they start walking, if that person falls, they're going to get very, very injured, and I want them to be aware of that, not just me. And I think that's what you're getting at also with like the STIs, and also part of why people should attend classes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
everything we do has a little bit of risk. And that's not to scare you, it's just to let you know that, hey, what we do is a little bit risky. Life is risky, and there's no such thing as like risk-free sex or risk-free play. And so everyone's responsibility, not just the top dominants, the submissives and bottom too, can understand this, that, hey, if you're going to play, understand what could go wrong or what things can happen. And then that just makes you a safer, more aware player.
I think this will be my last question for you. Now that we're in this moment in time where we're still in isolation, we're just starting to come out. What suggestions do you have for viewers about like how to stay connected and stay level and stay kinky and sexy through this time?
All right. Well, one of the things that I've been trying to tell people to do, especially if you're separated from your partner, or it works even if you're not, is to make what I call role play mason jars. And so what you can do is, so you have a mason jar, you get popsicle sticks, and you can write different role play scenarios on the stick. So you could be like, okay, this is going to be, there's the prisoner popsicle stick, there's a cheerleader, football player popsicle stick, student teacher, things like that, whatever type of role play you like to do. And then you might have a date night mason jar. So This works even if you are separated. So it could be like movie night. You can watch a movie where you're doing share screen on Zoom. You could do like, we're going to cook dinner together. So you have the phone open, laptop open, you're cooking, you can make the same meal, you're just separated from each other. Some people go on walks together. And then you have an aftercare jar, or my favorite is the affirmation jar. So this you make for another person. So one of my partners, I can make popsicle sticks that can say like, thank you for playing with me. Thank you for having this moment with me. You did a good job. And then, you know, after we play or whatever, they can look at these popsicle sticks and they know that, you know, I think favorably of them.
Awesome. I love that. Thank you so much for being with me on the show. I'm excited to see more about what you're doing, and until next time.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching this week's episode. If you want to see more, go ahead and hit the subscribe button so that we end up in your feed. If you got something out of this personally that was helpful to you, also please leave a comment below. I love hearing the feedback about what's working and what's not. That's what makes this show better. And until next time, love you more, and we'll see you then.